It just wipes it out of the water. Now, what I want to move on is to look at some of the specifics of what women want. This is a big topic, and right now I just want to put a little caveat on this. I do not presume to know what all women across all cultures, across all times, across all parts of their menstrual cycle and all of this want. Yeah? I definitely don't know that. And you know the reason why I'm still in this industry, because I only stay in something if it continues to challenge me. If I had worked out exactly what women wanted, and as some systems would say that they are, you know, basically these robotic automatons that if you press X, Y, Z buttons, they will always do this. Yeah? If that was the case, then I would have quit this business a long time ago. The reason I'm still in it is because women continue to amaze, surprise, and baffle me. Yeah? The more that I learn, and the higher level I guess that I get to play at, in terms of girls who have more and more social ability, the more I keep getting my head smacked around and realize that I still don't understand them. Yeah? And that's why it's interesting. That's why I keep learning. That's why we'll keep doing this for some time yet. So, what I'm talking about here is based on my research, which is extensive, and the research of the guys that I hang out with. So, you know, within my social crew, we have slept with over 1,000 women. And there's one guy who would double the entire amount of all of us together. Yeah, and I'll mention him later. And we have interviewed and talked to thousands of women because we are constantly doing that. And we don't just go and approach and say the same old lines, we talk to them to find out, like I did last night. I had no intention of sleeping with this girl, and her friend later on was going, "So James, I think you should escort Erica down to the dance floor." And I'm like, "I think she's okay." And she's like, "James, you should take Erica like a gentleman downstairs." And then her husband comes over and goes, "James, so how do you feel about Erica?" And I'm like, guys, I'm not a gigolo. And she's like, "Look, James, you can just be, you said you're a dating coach and that you're a gentleman, perhaps you should just go for a little walk with her." And I'm like, "Come on, look." And I'm like, "Why?" And I said, "Is that because she just broke up and she's vulnerable and she needs to get laid?" And she's like, "James, I'll be back." And I ran away. Yeah? But having those discussions constantly, I had no intention of seducing this girl, but I learned something very interesting last night. And I'm constantly doing that with my interactions. So just because you meet a girl and you may not necessarily, you know, think she's that hot or she's totally your type or whatever, you'll learn something about her. That girl just said, almost with tears in her eyes, "I just wish a guy would come over and say hello to me." And she said, and not like, you know, "Hey, how you going?" That was what she was saying was how she wanted to be approached. She didn't want a sleazy man, but she wanted a guy to just come over and say, "Hi, how are you?" There's your opener, guys. Yeah? Because that's a man showing interest in a woman, and that's what she wants in that first initial moment. So simple. So, what I'm going to talk to you about is the overall themes, things that I have found out. Does not apply to all women all the time. Because everything that I say to you now, there will be entire large percentage groups of women who like the opposite. Yeah? There is some really interesting, wild, wacky and wonderful sexual dynamics that exist out on this planet in terms of women who are very dominant with men who are very submissive, and that can work. Yeah, of course, all sorts of same-sex relationships and, you know, polyamorous dynamics and all sorts of things. Yeah? And I certainly don't stand in any kind of judgment about any of that. It's all legitimate as long as people are enjoying themselves and are happy together. But what we're looking at here is what do women in general want with men? Because, remember, why is that important? Because if you know what they want, then you can get what you want. Yeah, if we want to look at it from that perspective, you want to get hot, sexy girls into your life, you need to know what the experience of being seduced by you would be like and why that would be pleasurable or not. That's a question I'd say to my students. Would you want to fuck you if you're a woman? It's a weird question, weird thing to think about, isn't it? First you have to imagine yourself as a woman, then you have to imagine yourself as a man fucking you as a woman. And that's a really weird thought. Everyone just think about it while I drink some water. Can't help it, can you? But that's an interesting thing to think about. Like, has anyone ever kissed a girl? Hang on. That had just a little bit of a spiky moustache. Just a little bit. Yeah, I have. Yeah. Guy, I know. Well, I've kissed you on film, I think, Steve. This guy, he's like kiss closes every PUA on film. It's like. Yes. The interesting thing about that, like I've had this experience, a pretty girl, sexy girl, whatever, and then you kiss her, just a little prickly moustache, is it feels really yucky. It's a repulsive thing. Yeah? It doesn't feel nice at all. And I thought about this after I had this experience and I went, hang on a minute. Every time a woman kisses me, she has that experience. Way worse. Look at this. Yeah? Every time she kisses me, she has this abrasive feeling of prickly hairs rubbing on her sensitive, soft skin. And yet, she seems to like it. And when you think about that, suddenly you realize how different we are in terms of what we want sexually. Yeah? That action of having a rough, hairy man smearing his face across you seems to be arousing for a woman. That's a very different experience. And when you start to, I know it's kind of a strange example, but when you start to try and put yourself inside the woman's experience, because we can never really exactly understand what it's like to be a woman, but we can certainly get much more of a hint of it by starting to look at how does she respond, what she's feeling, and asking lots of questions, good questions. Because again, that's when we can start to deliver what it is that she really wants. Another important thing to note is that there is not types of girls. And we hear this spoken about by men and women all the time. Girls will often be saying they are not that type of girl. And which type of girl are they referring to? Sluts. Dirty slappers. Right? Because there's a special breed of women that are sluts. Yeah? Yeah? And what's the characteristic of a slapper slut? What is it? Sleeps around, has sex more than once with a different man. Yes? What else does she do? And is that good or bad? Well, yes, but it is. But a lot of people say it's not, because all these girls are saying they're not that type of girl, right? So why are they saying that? Buzzword. What does that mean? Everything's socially conditioned. She feels better about herself under what circumstance?
Saying that she's not a slut. Like she's herself feel better by saying self-esteem. She wants to make herself feel valuable. But if you sleep with a lot of people, you're able to see yourself a lot of value. So the partners that you see yourself with are not that easy to find.
Right.
People being judged.
Okay. The concept of a slut is a weapon that is utilised actually very often by women on other women to keep women in place, in a certain place. And there's a lot of speakers who've talked about this at great length. If you look at Johnny Saporno's stuff, for example, he looks at this dynamic very deeply. Yeah? The idea that a woman's value, how valuable she is defined by her sexual virtue. Yeah? And that if she is virtuous and she chooses not to have sex with very many men, well, that will define how important and valuable she is. And if she decides to have sex with a whole lot of guys, or above some arbitrary number, she will be not valuable in the eyes of society, or the eyes of a culture, or the eyes of men. because she gives it away for free instead of trading it for relationships. Yeah? Because it's okay to do that. It's okay to have a sex with a man as long as you get commitment from him or money from him or a ring from him or something like that. But the moment you have it because you want it, ooh, now you have belittled, now you have devalued vaginas around the world. Yeah. And that's often why women will wield this word or wield this weapon against other women to keep them in place, to keep the status quo going. No, honey, you give sex in exchange for relationships and rings, not because you enjoy sex. Now, that's the worst thing you can call it. That's the most powerfully damaging thing you can call a woman. Just as an aside, what's the worst thing you can call a man? Creep, yeah, no. What was that one? A what? Fred. Oh, a friend. Yeah. No, loser. Loser is the worst thing you can call a man. That's the most powerful insult you can ever call a man. I've been called a motherfucking cunt, arsehole, dickhead, liar, prick many times. Doesn't bother me at all. There's been a couple of times in my life where someone's called me a loser, and that's really crippling. And I'm like, no way, I'm not a loser. Because what that does is it talks about your value as a man in terms of your worth in society, your worth in terms of what you know and what you understand and who you are. A loser. You're not in the race anymore. Yeah? You can call a man a slut and he'll be like, thank you. You can call a woman a loser and she'll be like, whatever, what's that mean? Yeah. So,